For those of you who go to church, do not be surprised that if in the near future you start to hear your pastor actively endorse a political candidate. Yes, that is right. The IRS decided to acquiesce the lawsuit of a group, the National Religious Broadcasters and other groups, and them saying, hey, y'all have our hands tied. We should be able to talk about politics from the pulpit. Now, some of the reasons they cited was that, well, hey, we should be able to have this faith-based conversation about politics or politicians with our congregation, because a lot of times they have questions, right? And we might think that there is a candidate that's going to be better for our community and our church and, the people that go there, right? Now, the other thing is our pastors were saying, well, oftentimes we feel pressured, right? We feel pressure from politicians that are like, hey, let us in there. We want to talk to your congregation. Because we know that depending on the church, they have large congregations. And if that politician can get up there and speak to everybody at once, then it's great for them, right? Now, the other thing is this. The congregation is more or less like, well, we like this candidate. You should bring them in. Now, but because their hands were tied, they being the church, due to them being a 501c3, which is a nonprofit, right? That's a U.S. tax code that actually went into play in 1954 under the Lyndon B. Johnson. And when he was a senator, he introduced it saying, hey, we need to keep them separate, right? And so they're saying, hey, our hands were tied because of that. Now, they said that rule was rarely enforced, but it still was hovering over churches, and that, hey, there's only so much that we can say, right? Now, let's just tie this into the Black church, or any church really, right? But just the Black church. Now, if you've been in a Black church, which most of us have, we've seen politicians go in there and say, hey, I just like to talk to you. But before they did that, the pastor would say, well, listen, I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for. They just kind of want to have a talk with you. Who you vote for is your business, right? Well, with that, I've always said that, especially with the Democrats in the Black church, they operate the same. They often have the same ideologies. They say the same things. They like to sometimes keep Black people on the plantation of don't think for yourself, right? This is what you should think. Do this, do that, not how to think. And so this is going to be very interesting, and it's going to be very telling to see who these churches invite in and say, hey, we think y'all should vote for them. Now, I want to say this, because oftentimes people go to church and you just listen to the pastor. He could say, swing from the chandeliers, and you do it, right? I don't know why you would, but you would, right? Because oftentimes people say, go with the pastor. He knows best. He's, like Jesus. It's like, is he? I don't know. But anyway, I digress. The Bible also says for you to study the word yourself, rightfully dividing the word of truth, right? That basically says, okay, I hear what you're saying, Pastor. This is a good old politician, and he this and he that, or she this and she that. But let me go see that myself. Let me go see what their record is like. Let me see what their platform is about. Let me see if their policies are going to actually benefit me, right? Not just because the pastor is telling me to do that. So we got to be very careful, because we're going to see this ramp up to levels you've never seen before, because the restrictions are off. And we know with that, oftentimes politicians are like, would you like a little tithes and offering? Just a little donation for me. You think the pastor going to say no? And with that, of course, the politician is going to say, well, if you don't mind if I speak to your congregation for about 10 minutes or so. Oh, sure. Because they done sweeten the pot, right? Or the tithing basket anyway. So anyway, y'all let me know what you think of that. And I just want to know, how would you feel if your pastor invited a politician in the church and told you this is who you need to vote for? Would you like it or not? So anyway, let me know what you think of that. And for more insightful commentary, please